We listened to clueless pundits on television trying but failing to claim that the president had failed. The so-called experts in the foreign policy establishment, whose record is nothing but endless wars, trillions of wasted taxpayer dollars, and dead Americans, have the nerve to try and lecture President Trump, who has solved 7 global conflicts in 7 months.
But why is it disrespectful?
With all due respect, only a reporter from the New York Times would ask a question like that.
They thought they had her cornered, but they were dead wrong. Caroline Leavitt isn't just standing behind that White House podium anymore. She's turning press briefings into a lesson plan, and the media are her unwilling students. Time after time, these smug activists disguised as journalists strut in, hoping to score a flashy gotcha moment. And every single time, they walk out embarrassed, exposed, and humiliated. Before we dive into the full story, she's dealing with reporters. She's dismantling activists, whether it's CNN running their same tired spin, ABC pushing their pre-written scripts, or even Fox News slipping into the act. She takes their talking points and burns them to ash in real time. No hesitation, no retreat. She's redefining what it means to be a press secretary by torching Trump-bashing lies the moment they leave the reporters' mouths. This isn't spin control. This is a masterclass. She's not just surviving these hostile press rooms, she's dominating them. And watching her do it, it's priceless. Better than butter, sharper than steel. And absolutely devastating for the media elites who thought they could keep running the same old narratives. So buckle up, because what you're about to see is Carolyn turning fake news into rubble and leaving the press in stunned silence.
President Putin publicly confirmed what President Trump has said all along. The war between Russia and Ukraine never would have started in the first place if President Trump were in office. This was always obvious to any person with a shred of common sense. Just look at what took place during the last 4 administrations. Under George W. Bush, Russia invaded Georgia. Under Barack Obama, Russia took Crimea. Under Joe Biden, Russia invaded Ukraine. But under President Trump, Russia did not invade nor take anything. While previous presidents have traveled halfway around the world to apologize for America, President Trump stands up for America, and he has firmly restored America's status as the undisputed leader of the free world. However, one thing that has absolutely not changed is the media's negative and downright false coverage of President Trump and his foreign policy accomplishments. From the beginning of this entire process, much of the left-wing media has been actively rooting against the President of the United States in the pursuit of peace. Initially, the media ridiculously claimed that President Trump was somehow beholden to Russia for even agreeing to have a face-to-face discussion with President Putin inside of the United States. The media said President Trump was making a grave mistake by, quote, legitimizing Putin. They were aghast that President Trump would treat another world leader like a world leader. The media relentlessly attacked President Trump and claimed he suffered a, quote, major defeat for not immediately emerging with a final agreement, even though he said heading into that meeting, this was a meeting to listen and to understand how to move the ball forward. All weekend following those historic U.S.-Russia bilateral talks, we listened to clueless pundits on television trying but failing to claim that the president had failed. The so-called experts in the foreign policy establishment, whose record is nothing but endless wars, trillions of wasted taxpayer dollars, and dead Americans, have the nerve to try and lecture President Trump, who has solved 7 global conflicts in 7 months, about peace. This is why Americans' trust in the mass media is at a lowest point in more than 5 decades. Diplomacy is a delicate process, and instead of reporting the facts about what is happening here at this White House and what is happening between this president and other leaders around the world, many outlets in this room continue to try to actively undermine the president and sabotage the efforts towards peace. That is why I felt the need to set the record straight.
As of right now, there is no ceasefire in place. We've seen Russia continue its attacks on Ukraine. What indications is the president getting from Putin that he wants to have this meeting with Zelensky soon?
Because he spoke to him directly yesterday.
And he expressed that sooner rather than later.
He spoke to that directly yesterday, and the president put that in his statement that he gave to all of you, the news media, knowing you'd be asking following that conversation in the effort of transparency.
The point is to get everybody on the same page. why wouldn't Trump just take the call from Putin while the other leaders were in the room? He said it would be disrespectful to do that. But why is it disrespectful?
With all due respect, only a reporter from the New York Times would ask a question like that, Sean. The president met with all of these European leaders at the White House 48 hours after sitting down with President Putin on American soil. In fact, there was so much progress in the readout that was given to these European leaders immediately following his meeting with President Putin that every single one of them got on a plane 48 hours later and flew to the United States of America. And if I could just read for all of you some of the statements from those European leaders yesterday, you had President Zelensky himself saying it was a very good conversation. It was really good. We spoke about very sensitive points. The Secretary General, Mark Rutte, it was the president, only because of the president, that this deadlock was broken, but with President Putin by starting a dialogue. So these leaders, who this war is in their backyard, are very grateful that the president took that call and that he was there to provide them with a readout of Russia's thinking on this, something that was not done by the previous administration at all.
Thanks, Caroline. Since the president often says that this war would not have started if he were in office, and Putin confirmed that.
It's true. Do you accept that as true? The
Probably.
European leaders do.
Well,
and President Putin himself said that, by the way.
He did say that. The question I have, though, is what is the president going to do to ensure that these security guarantees last beyond him into the time when he is no longer president? And does that have to involve Congress at all?
Well, he understands the need for that, which he spoke to yesterday. And what's he going to do? It's why he's engaging in so many talks and so many conversations with both sides of this war with our European allies. It's why on the way home from Anchorage, Alaska, very late at night, when I know many of you on the press plane were sleeping and many staff were sleeping, the president himself was still awake at 2 o'clock in the morning talking to European leaders and NATO about how we can ensure a lasting peace and bring this conflict to an end. He has expended an incredible amount of time, energy, and effort into bringing this war to an end, and he remains determined to do.
And that right there shows you exactly why the media is in full meltdown mode. They can't stand when someone flips the script and forces them to face their own lies. Every time they walk into that press room thinking they'll corner this administration, they leave looking weaker, smaller, and more exposed than before. And you know what? That's why Americans are losing faith in these so-called journalists. It's not because people don't value news. It's because they're sick of being lied to by activists pretending to be reporters. And let's be real, this goes beyond one briefing or one exchange. This is about the bigger picture. The establishment press has spent years pushing the same tired narratives, twisting the truth, and mocking the very people they claim to represent. But moments like this remind us that truth still cuts through the noise, and that's why they panic. That's why they lash out. They know their grip is slipping, and once people see through the spin, there's no going back. So let me ask you, are Americans finally waking up to just how dishonest the press has become? Or will the media keep doubling down, thinking they can still control the narrative? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. And before you go, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so you never miss the next breakdown. Every bit of support helps us keep pushing back against the spin, and trust me, we've only just begun.